Hello, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. It's February 3rd, 2023, and a little after 11 a.m. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And welcome if you're watching the replay on Facebook or Rumble or BitChute. And I did just mention Rumble, and I'm glad to say that our Rumble channel is now up rumbling away with our most recent shows starting about a month ago. We've got them all loaded up, and so I'm ready for you guys to load up my subscription list. I've got about 80 people so far on that brand new Rumble. So check it out. McDuff Lives on Rumble. We'll be going live probably Monday on our Rumble channel. I'm really looking forward to that. And hey, good morning, David. How are you? Christy and 4945. How are you? Mona Lisa looking back at me from your little icon. And welcome. Oh, thank you for the applause. I didn't really do anything, but why not? Let's give ourselves a round of applause here at McDuff Lives. Yay. Well, I guess it's because congratulations on getting the Rumble channel started. And I'll be telling you more about how that happened and how it's happening with the help of a really good person that I've become engaged with on the internet, doing some great work. So I'll tell you more about Matthew in the near future. I want to get my Rumble going, and then we'll talk about how all this magic is happening, because we're also all the way up to date on BitChute. And a lot of people are following me on BitChute. I've got almost 400 followers there. So that's good. And as we try to increase our reach, as my goal this year is to have a bigger voice, I hope that you guys are able to sign up to subscribe for me over at Rumble, and just keep the churn going, keep people interested in McDuff Lives. How did you like the show last night? I was, after I did the show, I thought to myself, that might not have been the most interesting or even important show, but there was something inside of me that wanted to talk about that amazing anthem that we have. It is amazing. It's a really a great work of poetry. Not the first poem that Francis Scott Key ever wrote. He dabbled in poetry. A lawyer in Washington, D.C., and a defender of slavery. And not that he thought it was a good idea, it's just that he didn't see any alternatives and was unwilling to engage in emancipation because of who he was, because that's just the way he grew up. That's the way he saw life. He could not see behind the curtain, so to speak. He was engaged in the narrative that was forced upon him through his life. And we are now trying to free ourselves from a narrative that has been forced upon us in our lives. So I'm trying to engender some sympathy for the humanity of these people that are so easily just cast aside as, evil because they were racists. But everybody was a racist in 1820. Come on. I'm not saying everybody in terms of the whole world. I'm saying everybody that had a voice. In other words, white people were generally racist. And that was not because they were evil. It was because that was the most logically accepted explanation for the system. Why else would we have race-based slavery unless these darker people are more suited to physical labor, and we white people are more suited to intellectual pursuits such as how to make money? Well, let's get your feedback here. Christy says, I question everyone who promotes the 1619 Project. Well, that was promoted by our author, the PhD candidate at Yale last night, was it not? And it goes along to me with the show Hamilton and the rewriting of history, the false narrative. A lot of it does come out of the quote unquote empire state, unquote. I wonder why they call it that, New York. All right. And Corky says, oh, I forgot to put Christie's comment up there. There you go. And Corky then says, all shows add to the long conversation. You're such a generous and wonderful supporter, Corky. Thank you for that. It's your show, John, says Miss Hunt. Shine what you like. Good, good. Yeah, yeah. I don't know why. I think perhaps I'm starting to see how somebody like Garland Nixon has taken off so much. Garland Nixon. For those that don't know, he was partner in a show called Fault Lines with um oh God, not going to get his name. Oh gosh, that reporter that I met him downtown, and oh golly, Nixon. And anyway, Garland Nixon, has a 30 some year career, Fox News, and big time broadcaster who left Fox News because he didn't like the way that they were packaging things and the narrative and just the whole system. He got fed up with it and he left. Well, when I got in touch with him, he was not very visible online. And we started interviewing him, and he came to our charrette back in 2020. We had we developed a great relationship, and we're still very much in contact. We talk once or twice a week on Messenger, on Twitter, just to keep in touch. But he has taken off like crazy. And the fact is, he has so many offers to be on shows that he just has not made it. It hasn't made sense to him to come back on our show lately. But he sent me the nicest note. He said he wanted to thank me for helping it, for not me, us, for thank you and your crowd for helping me get started on the internet. And that was very gratifying. So each of you has helped Garland to get where he is now. And speaking of Garland, he's going to be at the anti-war march on February 19th at the Lincoln Memorial, Washington, D.C., along with Diane Sayre, Scott Ritter, a number of very important and diverse people from socialist sides and people from libertarian side. And the whole message is stop this war. Peace is the message. And let's not get distracted by anything else. We got to stop this horrible war before it breaks into Europe generally and destroys everything. So that's my agenda. I'm going to be there February the 19th, Washington, D.C., the Lincoln Memorial. I'm expecting thousands and thousands of people to come. Is it a little risky? Does it make me feel a little nervous? Yes. Are they going to be flying balloons over the top of it and dropping COVID spike particles on us? Hey, just joking, YouTube. I know those spike particles, they have to have a home on a cell, right? So it won't be spike particles, but nevertheless, you never know what they're going to be spraying in large events. But I don't think they will. I think there'll be so many people there that it would be fairly obvious if everybody suddenly got sick. Anyway, I'm planning on going. I see who else is mentioning it here. Oh, Lee Stranahan. How could I forget Lee's name? Thank you, David. Yeah, great reporter of, eh, highly established and very important reporter, Lee Stranahan. Let's see. Good morning, Laura Willingham says, with a heart wrapped with a bow. Thank you, dear. Good morning to you. Freedom 123 says, do you know there was white slaves also? Well, slaves are slaves. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you're a slave, you're a slave. Um, Yeah, there was, of course there were. There still are, I'm sure. You know, it's not, race-based slavery is basically an American thing, a British American thing. It doesn't make any sense in other cultures. So, yeah, if you look beyond the narrow thinking of the American slave culture, you see that it has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with power and violence. At the time, it seemed, this is 4945-3, saying at the time, it seemed that the inhabitants of the system thought, why pay for labor when you could get it for free? Today, they just take it. Well, it's not a question of why pay for labor. It's a question of you don't have any money. There is no money circulating. In Maryland, for the first 150 years, if you wanted to buy something, you had to give your tobacco. You had to pay with tobacco. And there's roads around Maryland, Virginia, all over the place called rolling roads. And a rolling road is a road where the great big cask of tobacco is rolled along, pulled by a horse or whatever, a donkey, whatever, and taken rolling road down to the wharf, where once or twice or three times a year a ship would come by and pick up the tobacco according to a contract you've made with somebody called a factor, which is the person that does the deal. And then you're done with it. You now have a piece of paper that entitles you to something, and you go to the local store and you buy some calico or some tools, or maybe if you're lucky you can find some wine. But there wasn't any money. So the idea of labor is always paid for was not current at all. And yes, everybody worked. It didn't matter if you were a slave or not. Unless you were extremely rich, everybody worked. But of course, not under a whip, like in slavery, in plantations and elsewhere, where the slaves were literally dehumanized and forced to work till they died, just like the enslaved people in the Nazi death camps. C.F. Neal, you are so right. Definitions matter. They've changed definitions and rewritten history. Boy, isn't that true? And by changing definitions, this whole idea of neuro-linguistic programming is something I need to spend more time studying. I haven't, but the idea is, that you get programmed into thinking a certain way by trigger words. And then, they take a word like pandemic, which has a very specific and clear meaning, and then they just change the name. They change the meaning of the word to fit their needs. It's exactly what they do, C.F. Neal. I agree with you. Mr. Potato Chips, hello. You can't believe everything you read or hear. You have to learn to think for yourself. My dad told a long time ago. Yeah, my dad told me you have to come out of the fog, get out of the fog. So my mind was elsewhere, not concentrating on the important business of life. Corky, we're going to get you back in a couple of weeks on the show, you and Carol, to talk some more about low energy nuclear reactors and solving the energy crisis without blowing up the world. A very, very admirable pursuit, and I support your efforts. So we'll talk some more. I think it's a Wednesday next week sometime, maybe the week after. Anyway, it's all on the calendar at screamingospreys.com. I've moved the calendar up to the top of the page so you can see it easily. Just go to screamingospreys.com if you want to know what's going on. And Catherine Jumping Mouse, our wonderful scheduler and person who takes care of so many things behind the scenes for McDuff Lives, has scheduled the calendar and is just about done with February, and got a nice full program with lots of interesting guests, including Nick and David, of course. Bill T will be back for a one-on-one with me. I think next Wednesday. We're still nailing down the date. I want to dig into his latest research and have a lot of new stuff of my own on Frankism and the Jewish presence in America, and to what extent was the American Revolution financed by Jewish money, traceable back to the Rothschilds. Um, Lots of great stuff to talk. Bill Taylor, aka W. Kittel on Twitter. Hi, Marie. So nice to have you here from Scotland. It reminds me of a story about that that was part of my studies yesterday when I was preparing for last night's show. And you probably don't remember the name William Baines, Beanes. It's spelled Beans, but it's pronounced Baines. And it's a Scottish name. It is about Dr. William Baines of Upper Marlboro, Maryland. His story was what led to the Star Spangled Banner being written. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have a Star Spangled Banner. So I'll just share that story with you now. It seems that William Baines was the descendant of Scottish immigrants. He was like third generation or so, but apparently still spoke with a Scottish accent. When the British landed at Benedict on the Chesapeake Bay in August of 1814, planning to march to Washington to burn Washington, as they ultimately did, they're on their way there, and they pass through the town of Upper Marlboro. Now, Upper Marlboro is the county seat of Prince George's County, where I practiced law for about 20 years. So I know this town and I know this area extremely well. And in the outskirts of the town, William Bain, the doctor, lived. Now, he had been a physician in the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. And so when the British came through, I guess they liked his house. They liked the location. So they said, well, we'd like to stay here. So the Admiral Cochrane and the British leadership ended up in Dr. Bain. He befriended them. He laid on his Scottish accent and talked to them like, oh, I'm one of you. I still regard, Britain as the mother country. And, you're welcome here. Just relax, enjoy my house. I'll do good by you. And so they took him in as one of theirs, a friend. Well, a few days later, the British are no longer at his house. They've marched on, and some stragglers, British soldiers, are out there doing things like stealing chickens and marauding and causing some losses to the local people. And so Dr. Baines and a couple of his buddies, who are the little people, got together a little posse and said, well, let's round these people up. So they rounded up some British soldiers that were supposedly, marauding around, and threw them into jail, in Prince George's County Jail. But one of them escaped and got back into the British lines and went and actually saw Admiral Cochrane and told him, what had happened, that they had gotten arrested and are locked up in the county jail, and Dr. Baines did it. Well, Cochrane was incensed that his friend had fooled him. He wasn't really his friend at all. He was lying. He wasn't a lover of Britain at all. He had just fooled him, and he was so pissed off that he said, "Go arrest that guy." So he sent, some troops or Marines or somebody out there, and they grabbed Dr. Baines and they threw him into the hold of a British warship. And it was through the efforts of Francis Scott Key that Baines's friends contacted the lawyer Francis Scott Key and said, "What can you do? Can you get our friend out of the British hands? Because he really is a nice guy, and he wasn't really fooling with the British. He does like the British, but when these marauders were out there, what was he going to do? He couldn't just not do anything. Come on." So Francis Scott Key, ends up going there with another guy to negotiate, and eventually they seem to have succeeded. But then the night falls, and the events of the recounted in the flag in the Star Spangled Banner occur, and Francis Scott Key then receives the inspiration to write the great poem. Without Dr. Baines and his shenanigans, character, or just by good or bad luck, whatever you want to call it, the circumstances fit together, and we now have a national anthem. I think it's pretty amazing, though, that the effect of the Scottish accent on the British, because they're British. There's most of them are Scottish too. British Army at that time. Anyway, hello, Marie Burns. Thank you for checking in, and I'm sorry it's damp and foggy in Scotland, but what can I do about that? Yes, we miss Garland. He has true charisma, and he's a brilliant man, and you ought to watch his show. Just watch his solo shows. Um, Terrific thinker, and yeah, he'll be back. But right now, he's overwhelmed with requests, so I guess we got him off to a good start. Oh, Zaganowski, you're planning to go there. Let's have a meetup point. Let's talk about getting together. Um, I'll scope out as the time gets a little closer a spot where we might have a chance to meet with our fellow Ospreys. That would be terrific. I'd love to see you all. Anybody that can make it on February 19th to the Lincoln Memorial. Hey ho to the Scots, says Miss Hunt. Ellie and R. We'll learn more about that from Corky and Carol next week. Marie Burns, my Irish relatives came to Scotland to escape famine and slavery. That makes sense. Burns is a good Irish name. I imagine it's Scottish name too, but yeah, that's an interesting story that you would go to Scotland to get away from the famine. Well, you'd go anywhere that they had food if you could move, if you weren't already too weak. Hello, Stephen. Stephen McElwain says 1690 Irish rifle coins in the colonies. I don't know what that exactly refers to. Tell me a little more, Stephen. David Underdown, a president of University of Michigan, negotiated an opium and coolie slave treaty with China. His son became president of Yale. Isn't that interesting? These tentacles of the opium and slave trades, you know, and we were talking about Baltimore. Boy, Baltimore's when they built those fast clipper ships, the Baltimore Clippers, that was the opium trade. Um, and that money from those clippers that ended up, you name part of Baltimore Canton. You have Canton in Ohio, Canton in various places around the country. What are they naming it Canton for? Because that's where they got bloody rich, selling dope to the Chinese. There's money, but it's not circulating. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And the money supply, remember Nathan Rothschild's famous statement, give me control of the money supply and I care not who makes the laws. It's the way it works. Study the Schiller Institute LaRoche material on economy. If you're still fuzzy about it, I was fuzzy about it for years and years. I bought a copy of the Secrets of the Federal Reserve by William Grider back in about year 2000 or so, and I didn't understand it. I read it, but it didn't make all that much sense. But now we understand the Federal Reserve. We've got a whole lot more data on it, and we understand that it is a big fraud, a cabal of elite bankers controlling the money supply. Exactly that, the money supply. Hello, Zagonostra. Any info on Kolomoisky being caught up in anti-corruption moves? Well, I think what you're referring to is the apparent interest of prosecutors in Ukraine in Kolomoisky. Now, I'm going to let David talk a little bit more about Kolomoisky because I'm not that up on him, but he apparently was one of the prime backers of the um, 2014, and also, if I'm not mistaken, the Orange Revolution itself. So, is he no longer in favor in the Zelensky government? I don't know. Well, see if anyone else has any information on that. Definition of a mask is to cover up or conceal. Yeah, that's right. And the mask, of course, is a very important symbol of things in the Renaissance and the whole idea of uh, the masked ball. A way to exchange information kind of semi-secretly. So you say, "Oh, I don't really know who that was that gave me that." They had a mask on. Other stuff too. Yeah, exactly. Cover up or conceal. I put a little syllogism on my Twitter, which goes like this. Point one, a virus is far too tiny to be captured in any filter or mask. And that's the definition of a virus. It goes back, to the first time they were talking about viruses. They said, well, we put this stuff through a filter. We've all this serum, the blood serum, through a filter, looking for the germ or whatever it is that's causing it, making this person sick. And he's sick, but we can't find any little particles that are making him sick. So therefore, it must be something that's so small that we can't filter it. We can't grab it with a filter. It's really, really tiny, nanoparticles, we call them now. But 100 years ago, they were just saying, well, they're too small for us to see, but they must exist because the person's sick. How can you get sick without some little particle, right? That's the big question of the Rockefeller Medicine Institute in some, is that you got to have a germ. You got to have a germ agent that makes you sick. And so the whole question is, how do we find it? It's too small to filter, so we just assume that it exists, and we're going to call it a virus. And so these, ephemeral things called viruses can't be filtered, can't be caught in a mask. So here's my logism. Number one, a virus cannot be caught in a mask. Number two, masks stop the spread. Number three, it's not a virus. It's a virus if a mask stops the spread. So why don't these brilliant doctors, of such renown, Fauci, McCulloch, Malone, explain, how do masks work on something that is too tiny to be caught in a mask? It doesn't make any sense. That's just my conclusion. Maybe I'm missing something. Sarmat Flowers, hello. Let's see what you say. White slaves includes also in trafficking, and so And may I say, advertisement prostitution, a term that just popped up in my head. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Saw a very interesting YouTube video of the history of slavery. It's what it's called, the history of slavery, and it's pretty cool to watch it. Kind of start out in the the Caucasus area, north of the Caucasus, and just kind of spread as it, as a function. Sure, you needed, as I was saying last night, you needed hundreds of hands to work the farms if you're going to survive off of agriculture. And you know, there wasn't a money system, so yeah, if you want to eat, you work. That's you know Captain John Smith. Call it slavery if you like, but it's subsistence is in another way. Another way to look at it, it is subsistence. All right, Corky, we'll see you next time. Oh, you're welcome, Marie. Always welcome here. Stephen, the slaughter under trust theory. I don't know story. I don't know that one. Sounds familiar, but I haven't heard it called that. Zagonostra says the goal of Ukraine war is to break up Russia. Maybe the U.S. could break up into regional groupings that reflect population. Unlikely, I know. Well, that's two things there. The first one, I agree. The goal of the Ukraine war is to break up Russia and then, sell it for parts like they did when they had Yeltsin. They're just now going to do it version 2 with Putin once they defeat him. Are they going to defeat him? I don't know. I don't know. It's if they defeat Putin, it'll be at the cost of millions of lives. I will say that. So in that sense, I hope that they don't. I hope they stop. I don't want this war to continue. If the U.S. breaks up into regional groups that reflect population, then the U.S. is dead, and all those regional groups will be dominated like provinces or colonies of the empire. So don't break up the U.S. It's a very bad idea. What's with the Chinese balloon? I don't know. I was hoping you guys could tell me. You watch Garland Marie, and he is very funny. He's very clever. Watch his Twitter. His Twitter is full of witty comments. CF Neil, maybe there's a better national anthem. I think there is. I think it's called American Anthem, and it was written by Gene Shear about 15 years ago. And I've sang it many times. When I first started the show, I used to sing it a lot. And I think that is my candidate for the new American anthem would be actually the American Anthem by Gene Shear. All we've been given by those who came before, you know, with all those people that made all those sacrifices, and all we are here now to pass that on and to increase the bounty. That's what we should be doing, is making everything better and not engaging in these crazy overseas wars that are for no reason except for to maintain a financial system that is already bankrupt. It's beyond any hope of recovery. Okay, Zach, I hope to meet you there, and anybody else that wants to show up, I will find a way to post a meeting point where we can say hello to each other and attend the event. Let's see. Good morning, Love Cat. Love to have you with us. Thank you for being here. Always good to hear from you. Hail Colombia, I think you're saying. Hail Colombia. Colombia rules the way. They used to use that for an anthem. I don't like the idea of Colombia. I think it's been imposed upon us by the British system, the whole idea of the um, Colombia as some type of ISIS figure for America, the kind of a Statue of Liberty lady that is a mythical cognate or version of Britannia, or Marianne, the French woman, or basically all of these female figures that are mythical are versions of Isis, the goddess of the earth, to whom we owe everything, because without the earth, we wouldn't have plants and animals and food and anything. So Isis, the traditional Mother Earth goddess, now being used for other purposes. That's just the way they try to psych us out. The Colombia, to me, is not something I want America to stick to. Just my own opinion. Okay, it's cold over there in Scotland, and we send you hot thoughts, courtesy of Love Cat to Marie. Okay, Marie clarifies for us. On her mother's side, the name is Murphy. Yeah, there's no more Irish name than Murphy, I don't think. Morphy. The South Burns is North Ireland name. Okay. Zelensky suggests NATO use preemptive nuclear strikes against the Russians. I saw that. It seems to just goes past people. They don't think, wait a minute, we're sending money to this guy. We're sending, our best tanks. We'll be sending our best warplanes in the spring. And he's ready to just throw nukes at Moscow. He's crazy. He's worthless. He's insane. He's an actor. He's been completely forced, I believe, to do this. Um, and he has mansions in Florida. It's all just stinking corruption, supported by the Biden administration. Stephen McElwain again. Let's see. Was either minted by the first U.S. bank in the South or to fund a war of the Continental Congress determined Congress shall coin money but not print it. They printed it to fund the war. Hmm. Yeah, I'm sure not clear yet, Stephen, on what you're saying. Um, was either minted by the first an Irish coin? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I like to see it though. Exactly. Yeah, Miss Hunt. Another good reason for masks, right? Mardi Gras, anonymity before Lent. I never thought of that, but you're exact. That sure does ring true to me. Mhm. And Marie, again, yes, the very rich still have these masquerades masked up in England. Kim Jameson aerosol, yeah, that's my theory. Yeah, this goes back to Frank Olson and how his job was to develop an aerosolized way to deliver um, things, I guess pathogens, right, poisons. Apparently, he found out too much or met somebody he shouldn't have talked to, and they had to get rid of him. But the idea that they haven't aerosolized these poisons by now, I think, is a little bit, you know, naive to say the least, and that the best way for them to create the appearance of a pandemic is through deployed aerosols. And that's not my original thought. That comes from George Webb, and I think he's exactly right about that. Electron microscope. Why can't they use an electron microscope to find the little virons that are all over the place, sitting on this table, on my shirt, that why can't they just take, if it's everywhere, just prove it. That it's everywhere, that you can't walk through life without breathing in some COVID virons. Oops, I might just got another strike though. I'm hoping they'll miss that one because it's just a hypothetical question. I don't know the answer. but we'll see. Yes, Laura. Okay. And, until I get my Rumble, I'm going to have to be careful. But when I get on my Rumble, look out because I'm going to be speaking very frankly about all this garbage, this deadly, deadly garbage. There's one I haven't looked at. I said, I don't need to look at that. Whatever it is, I don't need to see. Well, thankfully, David has looked at it. David Underdown Hamilton 68 to me means learn your history of Federalist versus anti-Federalist history. A good idea. A very good idea. Got an old book by Herbert Storing, the famous, historian from the 50s. I don't see it. Thought it might have been handy, but it's called What the Anti-Federalists Were For. And if you need to know who an anti-federalist is or what they were for, well, it's a good authoritative place to look. But yeah, I don't know what Hamilton 68 is about. Sounds like a psyop, so I just didn't even look at it. Marie Burns, Vinay Prasad. He has the results and data on the masks. Okay. I think that they were if I saw the little meme about those results that the masks do not stop the flu. So, and the flu, of course, is not a little bitty tiny thing, is it? I think it has to have a bacteria with it. Oops, I might be wrong. I'm not a doctor. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, purple mountains' majesties across thy fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee. Yeah, nice to think of God blessing America. America is or was beautiful. It should be even more beautiful now than it was then, but unfortunately, other people have ideas about mining and creation of agricultural disaster zones on glyphosate. They have these ideas, Bill Gates ideas to drive us all into tiny little cubicles, and they will then own all of the land on the planet. They'll give us some slave food that they'll grow with GMOs so we don't live too long and don't get too smart. That's their plan. I think H.G. Wells spelled it out pretty well for us 100 and some years ago. Hello, Christy. Christy Lebo says, is it really a Chinese spy balloon or is it our military's fake Chinese spy balloon? Our military wants to go to war with China, so influence Americans to believe China is spying. Yeah, and Mr. Blinken, you know, Lincoln Blinken, apparently called off his trip to China because of this balloon. They're looking for a provocation. Shoulder, yeah, here, knock this off my shoulder. Look at that, Chinese sending a spy balloon. There's no such thing as a spy balloon. There's spy satellites. Spy balloons don't make any sense. There's a spy balloon. Well, Nick, my friend Nick on Twitter says send up the cats. But let the cats claw it. That'll be the end of it. Razvedka, will the DC police arrest our beloved ospreys? God, they couldn't they? Just for saying eek, eek, eek too loud. Well, I've been in the DC jail. I've been, to when I used to practice law in DC. I was down in the jail meeting with unfortunate people. It's not a nice place. I don't want to go there. I don't want to be locked up. Don't want to get arrested. But I'm going to show up anyway. For free reign, hello. The solution is to seize and repatriate $100 trillion in CV damages from the WERF CCP bioterrorists. Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. Repatriate hundreds of trillions of dollars. Yeah, or another thing we could do is just declare a jubilee and everybody in America is debt free. You just pass a law that says no court can enforce a debt that was created before January 1st of 2023. The courts can't enforce the debts. The debts no longer have value. All of the air goes out of the big balloon. And we see that it's really just shriveled up into a few people holding the bag. Yeah, Congress can do that. You can just pass a law that says no court in this country can enforce a debt. Well, no, you can't, because if there's a law that was passed in 1790s or so and to protect creditors, that said that Congress can't do that. I don't know. I think the individual states may be able to do it, and we could change the Constitution if we have to. But somehow we've got to get out from under this unpayable, ridiculous balloon. It's like the Chinese balloon is a symbol of the balloon of all this debt that's hanging over our heads. And we need to just send in the cats, pop the balloon, declare a jubilee. It's all over. All over. Jordan Peterson says, oh, I'm sorry. Christy Liebel says that Jordan Peterson released a video where he's planning to create a counter organization to the WEF. Yeah, God, he's another person that I wish I could trust, but I can't trust. I just can't, not with his history. Pieces of 8. That's right. Yeah, I've got some. When I do colonial interpretation, I do some living history, and I have a purse of little pieces of 8 that are actually what are called cobs. It was cut out of the piece of 8, a little eighth of it or a quarter of it, and these are called cobs. And there's some theory that Cobb Island was named after these Spanish dollar pieces called cobs that were hidden here and we have a little cove over here called the Pirates Cove. This island could have been a pirate cove back in the days of the Neils and the English and Scottish pirates. So that's an interesting reference. Thanks for bringing that back to mind. The original dollars were indeed pieces of 8. And the quarter was 2 bits, right? Two pieces of the dollar, of the eighth of a dollar. Hail Columbia, the ship of the nation. I don't know the lyrics to that. Yeah, I'm sure it's a good song. It's a very rousing. I just don't like the idea of Columbia, as I said. Christy Liebel, Thailand is going to be the first country to nullify the Pfizer COVID contracts. One of the family's daughter died in a coma from the vax. Zaganastra once again. Did you see Jimmy Dore anti-war rant on Tucker Carlson? It went viral on Twitter earlier in the week. Yes, I did see it. I did see it. I'm going to rant a little bit about Tucker Carlson, if I may. I mean, it's like Jordan Peterson in a way. I wish so much that I could believe him to be sincere. but I don't. And when he came out talking about this Pfizer video with this guy that we've all seen in the the supposed story of leaking the secret evil plans of Pfizer to make more and more generations of virus and vaccine to make it worse and worse, so we have to keep buying more vaccines. That that evil plot that he spelled out there, Tucker Carlson bought it. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to use this to prosecute them. And I'm sorry, Tucker. It's not just your family history with your father and Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe, and your kind of silver spoon bringing up. It's not just that. It's also the way you kind of use your face, to say like, he's like looking at the camera, like trying to use his face to convince us that he's really, really worried about this Walker guy. Now, I think it's all part of a greater deception, and I cannot possibly believe that Tucker Carlson is on our side. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, running into the last 5 minutes, I'll just kind of skim through. We got a lot of comments this morning. Thank you all for that. How much does it cost to produce and distribute U.S. pennies? Too much, I'm sure. They've taken most of the copper out of it, so it's not the price of the metal anymore. It's just a matter of how much does it cost to produce the little things, and why bother since they are practically worthless. The missing treasure map was to never print money again, only coin it. Yeah, I agree with you. Let's go back and refight that thing because the Constitution talks about coining money. It doesn't talk about printing money. So early Supreme Court case, they tried to say you can't print money. Eh, they got away with it. The court very business friendly, very banker friendly. But I agree with you. If it's coin, this is getting into basic economics and look at Ezra Pound on this issue. He was very astute. If money doesn't have internal value, then it's not money. It's just scrip or fiat currency. And the only way to really have a money system is if the money itself has money, has silver in it, has gold in it, has platinum or something valuable in it. It's just like those casks of tobacco that we talked about at the top of the show. That was money because it's valuable. You can trade it for stuff. You can get calico. You can get, stuff from the Scottish store down in Port Tobacco. You can get stuff with money, but a piece of paper, no, you can't rely on it. The people that issue the paper may decide to inflate it. There you go. There's the Rothschild plan of control the currency and control the nation. So, yeah, using paper money is wrong in this country. We should all be using coins, and that would slow down growth. It really would, because the growth that we have is based upon the fractional reserve banking system, and that produces results a lot faster than real money does. But then it's ephemeral. It can disappear, just like all the wealth of this country can disappear once defaults start happening on those big, big, big loans. Free reign. Zelensky already stooged for CB-19 warfare. Sniffy and Zelensky are macabre conduits staged to run $100 trillion in terrorism, staged HSBC warfare against citizens worldwide. Well, that's maybe this the plan. When you say something like that, now we need proof. You need to put, you know, outline how this works, who's doing it. It sounds perfectly reasonable to me that that could be going on, but that's why we need people like Mark Gulak who are going to do the research and not only research it but nail it down with copies and indexing and multiple um, reserve sites, to do the hard work, because I think the theories are there, but underpinning those theories with facts, that's the hard work. And we try to do our part here at McDuff Lives, but I tell you, there's a lot of great people out there working on this problem, including Mark and David and so many others, Nick. It's a big problem. We can't all wrap our arms around the whole thing, but we can conquer parts of it. And from my point of view, I'm a lawyer. I have a degree in government from William and Mary. I have a doctor of laws from Georgetown University. Practiced law for over 30 years. And I try to look at it from the point of view of what can I do with my particular history and expertise. Well, that's my effort for this morning, is to try to incorporate all your thoughts into mine and prepare for another good week here at McDuff Lives. Started to prepare something else I just wanted to let you know about. Here it is. This is the score to La Boheme by Giacomo Puccini. And I was recently offered the part of Colina in this fabulous opera, one of the most important and beautiful pieces of musical composition in our culture, in history. And I'm delighted to get back on the stage. That'll be this fall in a company in Pennsylvania called Center Stage Opera. I'll be in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland on some of the bookings, and I'll let you know about that when it comes along. But I wanted to just let you all know that, yeah, after 4 years, I have an opportunity now to get back on the stage and sing a very important role in that beautiful opera, La Boheme. All right, everybody. Thanks again for being with me. Have a great afternoon, a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, and look out for that misinformation. Don't be fooled. We'll see you Monday. Love you guys. Bye now.